Hey, welcome to the Runaways podcast. My name is Cody, and today we're going to be talking about new. Move over Zen. No more Zen. New is here to stay. We'll also recap some national results, and to talk about these topics, I have Lucas back. He left us last week because he was busy or something, and he's decided to come back and skip out on Pro Tour testing to come onto the podcast, which we only have like 2 weeks left for, by the way. So, Lucas, how's your week been? How's your testing been?
Good. I've actually been pretty responsible so far. I've been doing as much testing as I can. I've been getting a lot of drafts in. Um,
Have you?
I have been getting in more drafts than I was beforehand.
Are your draft logs been posted so that I can review them?
Actually, some of them are, yes.
Okay, good.
And some of them are very interesting. But my week's been good. I've been just kind of chilling at home a lot. I don't really like playing games against randoms on Talishar, so I haven't really been doing that. But I've been getting in team games when I can. I've been watching a lot of the coverage from the Magic Pro Tour, but don't tell the other Flesh and Blood players that. As well as finally watching the U.S. Nationals live stream. It was a lot of fun to watch Dalton do the triple Art of War Sacred Art turn in not real time. But yeah, I've been good. Been playing a bunch of Flesh and Blood. Looking forward to Amsterdam. I'll be 18, so you guys can figure out what that means. But I'm really excited to just go there and enjoy the city and
You don't need a chaperone to travel?
hang everybody out. Yeah. Hang out with everybody.
Sweet. And we have, as always, Dan. He's back. There's no Plant. It's been gone for a while now. People have asked what happened to Plant. Is Plant still alive?
It's living outside. It's alive.
Is it back? Is it dying still?
It's been like persisting in the state that it left.
Well, thanks for joining on the cast as always instead of testing, which I know you would prefer to be doing, as I see your millions of decks iterations keep getting posted into February, which is great. I don't have draft logs from you. I'm just going to take the public opportunity to ask for things that I need. Team, we need draft logs. Let's go.
I've done a ton of drafting, but it's been in person.
Yeah, I know.
Which is what I need.
Just giving you a hard time. But how's your week besides that been?
It's been chill. It's been good. I'm just really hoping LSS will take action on this problematic hero who's overperforming and no fun to play against.
Yeah, you mean Azalea, right? Is that what we're talking about?
That's one of them, yeah.
Whoa.
Okay. Well, without further ado, let's go through some national results, and then we'll talk about the problem hero on the rise, potentially. Yeah. So we'll talk about some national results. We had the second week of nationals, because I'm just going to lump US in with the first week, because that's how it should be anyway. Second week of nationals here, and we had a complete turnaround. New could not win a tournament to save their life, even though everyone and their mom was playing it. And New has shown up and decided to be second place in wins for this week, jumping them basically.
First place this week, second place overall, but she had more wins than Zen this week.
Did she?
Yeah, she had. Flesh and Blood posted some graphic. I want to say it was like 5-4 or something like that.
Oh, she did. You're right. One more win than Zen this week, which is a big deal. So Zen, not good deck anymore. We can just stop talk about how good Zen is.
Stone cold unplayable.
Yeah, terrible deck. New definitely way better. So Zen won 5. New won 5. Zen won 4. That brings the total for Zen up to 9 and New to 6. And basically everything else is trash. So that's like 50% of all the wins, right? So what do we think about looking at this week? Any things that pop out to you that happened? Anything where the meta's going? Share me some thoughts on what you think about the uprise of New.
I mean, you would think the meta is adjusting to Fi, right? Like, you're seeing these fast decks come out like Dash. You're seeing maybe people figured out their new builds, and she's performing now. I don't know. New seems a little too good. I think we should take her down a notch and maybe just out of the game completely.
I mean, it's basically like play an MST hero or you're probably not doing well. Because, I mean, number 3 is Enigma in wins, even though I don't think Enigma should win any. But they're going to win a couple here and there when they squeak through with some good matchups, especially if New is showing up more. But honestly, I don't think Enigma is the same power level as like Zen, for example, and the fact that it just has like a flip-flop matchup with that is a problem. But I will say, I mean, the other decks, obviously the difference is like they've won 2 tournaments, so it's not like a big deal. Like Victor came out this week and won
Mhm.
2 events.
Yeah, it feels like Ice Heroes again, where it's just like the Ice Hero is the best deck, just because it's that talent and it has access to that pool. Everything else is like slightly below it.
Yep. There's also there's like a like next tier of decks as well. Mostly being Azalea, Prism, what's it called? Like you said, Enigma, and then we have Dash and KO is like the KO's like the top of that tier of just like other decks that seem to actually have pretty reasonable top 8 numbers. KO still has the second number of top 8s of any other deck aside from Zen, but they're just not converting. And it's actually like a pretty steep drop off if you look at most of these heroes from the semifinals to making the finals. So we could see, I think you guys talked about this on the pod last week a little bit, where maybe some of these nationals are a bit smaller, maybe a bit less experienced. And so it's easy to prey on people who don't know how to play against something like Prism. But once you get to those top cut matches, it might be harder. Prism is like the start, like the biggest example of this, having 19 top 8s and 6 top 4s is pretty terrible. A sub 33% win rate is awful in top 8. But I think like this tier of hero is where we can see the most like real change, because we know Zen's going to keep doing well, and New will probably keep doing well to some degree. It might drop off a little bit, it might get a little bit better, whatever. But those 2 heroes are doing pretty well. But the next tier is, I think, where we see like maybe a deck or 2 step up into S tier, or some of these like fall by the wayside as people learn how to play against them. Things like Prism, Victor, Enigma come to mind as like maybe they'll like kind of go to the side once people realize what they're doing against these guys, especially at the Pro Tour level.
Yeah, I would agree at the Pro Tour level, things consolidating a little bit. I know there was a big breakout from Dash this week,
Yep.
showing that it has a pretty good Zen matchup. I mean, it's still Dash, so its other matchups aren't like great, but
Yeah, the new matchup is
kind of a problem among just the other random things you might run into. But seemed to perform well. It targeted what it was supposed to, and it did well. With that said, we still have Zen sitting here at 31% wins across all nationals, and New is now up to 20%. So those 2 together is just like 50% of all the wins.
over. Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit over 50%. And so it's like a 2-deck meta, I guess we could say. There's Zen and there's New.
After 2 weeks of nationals play, yes, it looks like a 2-week meta, I guess, or a 2-deck meta.
I mean, I would agree. Everything else adds up to that. I will say it's pretty interesting. Like KO just like can't win a tournament currently. He's like the new, but he can top really like pretty well. He just hasn't been able to convert. He goes to like, top 4 pretty easily, but kind of loses out there. You already mentioned Prism. Prism finally got their first win though. They did get their win this week, which is good. And then the other big upset we talked about a little bit is Victor. Victor came in and won 2 events this week out of nowhere. I'm guessing off of the back of Azalea and Zen is kind of how they probably rose there. Maybe some new matchups, because I think that matchup is not as bad as people think it is.
Yeah, it's funny. I think everybody has Victor's matchup spread wrong. I think you're like perfectly fine into New and Enigma, and I think you're like pretty bad into like Azalea. But
Yeah, no, I saw this. One of the victors was on Twitter, their top 8 bracket, and they beat like Enigma.
I think it was
New.
New, Enigma.
Enigma, yeah, something like that.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think its new matchup is nearly as bad as people think it is. I think it's Enigma match with the new Enigma list that's like all attacks, like super favored into that, at a pretty healthy margin. But if they're still running all the ward cards, I think that matchup is definitely Enigma favored. Kind of like the early builds of Enigma. It is very complicated to play the match. I know you and I sat down and played like half a day of that match together.
Yeah, spectral manifestations and restless coalescence add these like extra 2 to like 3 turns in the game where the victor has to have it. Whereas like if they're playing fewer of those, you only have like a couple turns you like have to do something. But if you let them keep like a spectral manifestations out for a turn, it can snowball and you can just lose. Which you can just have it, or they can be Enigma and look at their hand of like 2 chi and a hold the line and be like, no blocks.
Yeah.
But sometimes, yeah, you draw your guardian hand of like disable 3 poopy blues, and you're like 7 you, and they're like, I'll give you 2 cards. You get like really punished by these heavy aura versions.
Yeah.
But like you said, they're moving away from those potentially. So
Yeah, I could definitely see the heavy attack version not being that bad for Victor. I mean, you have like 2 auras you have to worry about, and then you're just like a worse Victor deck for the most part. Like, I can see.
you're a victor, but you always lose the clashes. Like,
Yeah, you almost always lose the clashes, and then on top of that, the gold main gets real value in that matchup when you don't have to worry about the wards, right? So
yeah,
it's good.
every card,
into the
every
wards,
card
but-
with gold in its name or
Yeah.
in its text is insane.
So I could definitely see that happening if the Enigmas are trying to attack for Zen, which they kind of have to be able to play the game. So Enigma in a weird spot. New coming in with that Victor match, I think it's hard for New to kill the Victor and stave off like Victor's aggression long enough. Victor just does big number and New doesn't do big number. But if the game goes long enough, then New wins. So it's like the onus is on New to like make the game last long enough that they can take advantage of their chi. But luckily there's like no Kanos being played currently. So, Victor can run through that. And a couple of his other bad matchups are not floating around either. So it was pretty cool to see him at least pop up and do some things for the people who want to play Guardian. I would expect that we're going to see more New wins. People seem to have gotten a decent build on, and obviously that deck requires a decent amount of play to do well. And I think that's why we saw it kind of take a couple of weeks before it caught up. We've been saying for a while that the deck is incredibly powerful and has a lot of things in the past that I don't think people would put up with as a deck is allowed to have. You basically are not allowed to play the game in most aspects against New. You get a little bought out because they don't have a ton of damage. So even if they're controlling you, sometimes it doesn't feel like your health is going down. And so like the way the builds have changed, the way the playstyle has changed is being able to actually still push some damage while controlling. And I think that's, made some difference in the deck, but I guess we can just go into the new topic if we don't have anything else to say about Nationals.
Yeah, makes sense. I just want to know why LSS hates fun.
Yeah. It's a pretty hot take, but you're not wrong. Like all of the new heroes are really fun to play. Lucas, you were saying this before we got on the cast and I made you stop talking so that we could talk about it on here. But you said we have the most fun illusionist probably that we've ever had to play. We have like the most fun ninja to play, and we have like the most fun assassin control deck to play. But all of these are miserable to play against. So it's like one half of the one side of the game is like amazing for this set, and then all of the play experiences going into these heroes is just like god awful.
Yep, they're all just like completely miserable to play against in different ways,
and almost none of them want to play into each other either. Like no matter how the matchup into each other plays out, like there's one person just having no fun. It's like you're playing Enigma into Zen and the Enigma player's having no fun. You're playing New into Zen and the Zen player's just having no fun. And then you're playing New into Enigma and then the New player's having no fun. So it's just like a triangle of no fun and one person having all of it, which has made like the heroes are really interesting and well designed. They're just, man, it does not feel like a back and forth.
Yep, agreed.
Lucas, I know that was kind of your point and I stole it from you, but
I was preoccupied.
yeah, I
You're all
saw
good.
the doggy came in. But what do you think? What do you think about this new design they've been doing?
We definitely have a title for the episode that has to be incorporated, but we'll do that later. But I don't know. I think it's okay. I think my biggest thing about the meta is I don't think it's solved. I think there's quite a few decks that have a lot more play into these popular decks than people like initially realize, and I think we're still kind of in the fallout of. We had a lot of heroes LL pretty quickly, right? We had Lexi Icelander and then Dromai, all like one consecutive format apiece. And I think there's a couple of those decks that maybe haven't had enough looking at. We have this concept. I don't know if it's originated in our team, but I've only really heard it in our team. I assume other people talk about it, of like blowing up a deck where you kind of like start from the ground up and you rebuild and you're like, you evaluate all the cards again and you look at what's powerful and you go from there instead of just taking a previous list and like updating it. And I think a lot of these decks could use that style. I think there's a lot of heroes that have just not been looked at in certain ways that could potentially have play into the new heroes. But I'm not actually sure. And honestly, I'm not sure that we're going to see it. It's always like there's an event 3 weeks from now. It's a pretty big time investment to try and figure out if Max can be played with 12 generics in your deck or whatever. And it's like, you're not going to put the time in to try to make something like that work. So I think probably we don't see a huge meta shift, and the meta's kind of boring already. But I'm okay with it. Like I said, I think there's room for innovation, and some of those heroes like Dash, Prism, Victor, they do have room to make themselves better into these two powerful heroes. So we could see some innovation and those get more popular. But Mystic heroes are good. I'm excited for the next set. Just don't tell my teammates I said that. They'll yell at me and tell me to prepare for Amsterdam.
Yeah, I think it's a little doom. I don't think the meta's like boring by any means. It's just it's in that issue where it's like no matter what deck you want to pick, you're like, ooh, I'm really good into this matchup and this matchup. And then I have like a 0% into these two matchups. I can't play this deck. Like that's kind of how it feels like every deck you look at. It just has like these glaring weaknesses when it matches into another deck that's popular. And it just
or you just play Zen.
Yeah, my deck has no weaknesses.
Or you play Zen or KO, right?
But then you're playing Zen or KO, and it's just like, oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Riveting.
I don't want 0% matchups, so you play Zen and KO. That's kind of like a boat that you're in. And then you're like, I want to try and counter those, so you play new. It's kind of what you're in. And now we need the third section, which is just like, what counters that? And so it's like, it feels like it's KO and Zen if you don't want like 0% matchups, right? And then you go out from there, you're like, I want to counter those, so I play like Azalea New, right? Is kind of in that area. And then if you take another step out of that, you're kind of like, what? Enigma Prism? Like, because it's kind of trying to counter some of the counters, but then you're just in 0% territory, right? Like,
we need like an Icelander. We need a deck that's like 60-40 into like a bunch of, like every matchup's like 60-40 one way or the other.
It's called Zen and KO.
Well, but the thing is, like, Zen is 60 into everything, and KO is 50 into everything. Yeah. So it's just like, okay. Like, Zen has, like, the 140% matchup or whatever. It's like, okay.
Yeah, that's interesting meta. Like, the whole world's obviously targeting Zen right now, and
it doesn't seem to matter.
Trying to beat it, but...
Hey, it mattered.
No, I mean, the results showed.
New showed up.
He was kind of kept in check this week, I would say.
Kind of, because Zen actually had like a pretty similar amount of top 8s and wins and everything. It's just like New was also there. Like it wasn't like New replaced Zen's meta share. It just like replaced other heroes' meta share.
It sort of
I guess Zen reduce his wins by 20%.
Yeah,
he had one less win, but like
it sort of feels like both of these decks, New and Zen, are like 1 or 2 cards away from being an interesting matchup to play against. Like if they just lost a couple of cards, the deck would still be pretty strong.
Oh yeah.
But the matchups would actually be interesting to play.
Well, let's talk about that.
That's what the ban list is for.
The ban list is going to do nothing. Yeah. But no ban list?
Seems likely, yeah. They got to hit Siren's Call though, man. That card should not exist.
They're not going to hit anything. Like I think if New hadn't shown up this week and Zen had just like ran the gambit even worse, then probably we're going to see it. But I don't expect to see bans, but we can talk about that in a little bit. I still want to go back to, talking about how I think these heroes are just like a couple of cards too pushed where it makes the matchup feel kind of hopeless for a lot of decks that are playing into it. There's just too many things that can happen that like you're not playing a real back and forth. And to be fair, we came out of a meta that was like massively back and forth. It was back and forth to the point where it was like someone got 5 extra value on a turn and like that ended the whole game. Heavy hitters felt like that quite often, especially with, like Hatchet Dory and stuff coming around. You're just like, you're playing a Hatchet Dory mirror and you're just like, well, I thought that was more interesting than some mirrors that we played against. It was like the other person swung 1 extra time and you're like, no, I lost 2 cards from my deck. I think I lost now. And you're just like, oh, you got so heart value. Oh, you can't get heart value.
Like the heavy hitters meta felt like the whole game didn't matter until like the last 2 turns when somebody had like a Blade Flurry instead of like a
which were like turn 20 and turn 21.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And this format, it's like you have like 1.5 turns, and
Yeah.
then you know who's gonna win.
I don't mind fast
Yeah.
turns but like fast games by any means. It's just
Mhm.
like
I
these
do.
the matchups aren't. No, I think it's different because I think a lot of the games in LL format are really fast or can be really fast, but they can also be very interesting at the same time while they're really fast, right? These
Yeah.
two decks feel a little too push for the matchups to be interesting because like sometimes Zen is just like Ancestral Harmony. Oh, I drew an extra card. Art of War. The game's over. Like
Yep.
there wasn't ever a counterplay. Like you're like you threw your thing to like try and stop them, and they just play armor in front of it, and they had like a power turn. You actually made their turn better by letting them block with helmet, and then they just like kill you on the back end. You're like, okay. And then like New on the other hand, you just like get stuck in their loop because you can't play grindy decks. There are 100% decks that just like murder New. But the issue is if you're playing a deck that murders New, most of the time you're getting murdered by Zen. So like Zen's like helping New actually play the game because like
It's like a triangle meta, but like one of the points on the triangle is just like really, really bad. Like there's like New beats Zen and like a lot of the time, and then it's like Zen beats a bunch of stuff. But like the deck that Zen beats and beats New is like not very good. Like it's like Enigma, I guess, but like
like
you
Hatchet
don't
Dory
even
is amazing in the New, just like
Yeah.
absolutely phenomenal deck in the New. I think Riptide is actually pretty good in the New as well. From the games that I played, Prism good into New as well. Um, for the most part, I think that's and there's a bunch of decks like this that are like pretty good into New where you're playing it and you're just like heavily favored. But it doesn't matter because Zen's over here just like you want to play Hatchet Dory into Zen, please,
we
please,
tried.
please try.
We did our best.
Yeah. So like it's weird. Zen is keeping everything in check that lets New be in the meta. And so
Mm.
for a lot of the decks that can beat Zen, New is still kind of an issue for them as well. And New is an issue in a different way, and it's controlling how you can even play the game. Like you're not allowed to play your game. And a lot of times there's no right answer to how they block or how to block them. And every game feels completely different. And while that's pretty novel and different for like how other decks operate, um, it just feels like completely helpless or out of your control when you're playing as New quite often.
Yeah, it's very frustrating. To me, it's like mostly fine until the sirens call. It's just like, what do you mean you're gonna take my blue? Like, and
And
I
draw a
can't
card.
even have a choice, and you draw a card. Like, it's just so annoying. Like, if you present an attack with disruption, sure, I'll decide like, what do I play around, what do I not. But if you go dagger sirens call, it's like whatever. I guess I'll just skip my turn. That's fine.
I played some dash games against Yongji, and he sirens called me I think 5 times, and he missed every time. And that was like the only games that I played against New in like a large sample size. And I was like, dude, this card sucks. Why would you ever put this card in your deck?
Yeah, it's definitely mostly a Zen issue because almost every hand has like 2 blues, right? So like never
Well, it
misses.
yeah, it should be a dash issue too. I just kept having like
That's
yellow,
fair.
yellow, red, red, and like okay.
It's a most deck issue because even more efficient decks than Zen, it's almost worse. Like it's like KO, it's
Oh yeah.
almost worse. They take your 1 blue from your hand. You're just like, I pitched 2 reds, like to pay for a red, I guess. Like you just like it's a skip your turn half the time.
Yeah,
On top
at least
of-
with KO, if you have the yellows, like your turn still works perfectly fine, and you get to punish them.
Yeah, sometimes. At least you get to play throw one thing, unless they,
Yeah.
come in with another attack afterwards, and then you don't get to play anything, and now
Yeah.
you're just blocking.
Oh
You're blocking
man,
while
I
being
just
fatigued.
hate news so much.
Yeah, I like
Even like the
playing
super
it.
prognosis card, it's like not that bad because like maybe your hand's all blues, and it's like sure, like 40% chance that you miss, and they always hit. Or maybe you have an Artivore, and it's like 3% chance you hit, and they hit every time.
I hate that card so much. It's I hate that card.
I hate all of these cards so much.
I mean, I think New's fun to play. It's definitely
Yeah,
a
no, she's
hero.
very fun to play.
It's definitely a hero that like is pretty rewarding to high skill players. But I think it's rewarding in such a way that the other person has no agency in the game. They're just hoping to guess right a couple of times, hoping that you get a new hand where you can't do anything. And they're hoping to like push your health down. There are some decks that combat this very well. Like Enigma, I think is pretty good in New when it built like a real Enigma list, not like a bad Guardian list. for example, but all of these decks just lose to Zen. You're like, who am I going to attack, Nu or Zen? And you're just like, your matchup is like really bad into one of these two heroes, and it just makes tournaments feel like gem lotteries, which I think is a bit rough. Obviously, I don't know. It's been weird. This format is just polarizing matchup after polarizing matchup. Do you think that's like a actual like design problem that we're currently having with the game?
I think part of it might be like the like top decks are like slightly overtuned, just like ever so slightly.
Yeah,
Because I do think
a
there's
couple of cards from being interesting.
yeah, it's like there's a lot of decks that are actually like pretty reasonable into both of these top decks. Like Victor and Prism and Azalea are like the three decks that I think of where like those are all decks that have play and are at least reasonable into both of those decks.
Yep.
It's just like they're a little bit behind, just a little bit in like one of the matchups, and it's like it's just better to play one of those two. Like there's just not enough. It's like very close. But like Prism is like not quite good enough into Zen probably. Azalea is like probably also not quite good enough into Zen. Victor's like probably not quite good enough into Nu. Like you can play all these decks, but then it's just like okay, I'm like flipping into the best decks and then I'm okay into everything else. Why don't I play one of the best decks, flip into the best decks, and just be good into a lot of other stuff?
Yeah. Not to mention everything you just mentioned has like other matchups that are just terrible for it.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. It's like they're those matchups aren't good enough to justify playing those heroes when you have other problems.
Unless you just want to roll the dice on your gym lottery, right? It could pay
That's
off.
what I did.
Yeah.
That's what I did at Nats, and then I, played against the Zen, and it was not quite good enough, and then I was out.
I will say I do prefer this type of meta where it's like there's the clear one or two decks that are the decks to beat, and either you play them or you try to beat them.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember that a couple of recent metas were not that at all, and it was just like everything's kind of bad, and there's still a bunch of like 90-10 matchups, and that was like really annoying to navigate until we found Hatchadori, right? Like I was
especially if you
for that event.
Especially if you think you can have a deck building advantage. These metas are actually pretty. I think these are like perfect for deck builders. Like finding edges in like mirror matches is pretty huge. Like I remember the Lexi meta. I actually really enjoyed because I thought Lexi was the only playable deck, but I thought there was a lot of play in deck building and like gameplay and game planning in the Lexi mirror. So I actually thought that meta was like pretty reasonable, even though like 80% of the heroes were actually not playable, and then like 15% of them were just normally bad. But I don't know. I don't know if this is like quite there. But if you do think you have an edge in these mirrors, then that can be like a really big deal. And so I think it's just like a different way of expressing skill or like, trying to get an edge over the competition compared to other metas.
Yeah. I will say, I think overall, like I'm still having fun, obviously playing the game. Probably even more now that I have a hero that I actually like to play, which is Enigma. Like I can't really play it right now, but every time I sleeve up that deck or every time I play it on Talishar, I just have fun playing the deck, and it's been a long time since I had that, so like that's super cool. And last meta was kind of like this as well, and this has been like maybe this has been a thing the whole game phase. It's just kind of gone on up and down how bad it is. It's hard to adjust in a tournament setting to a bunch of decks having 0% matchups. Like legitimately, like they're like nearly 0%. They're somewhere in like the 0 to 20% range, which in like a major tournament might as well be 0. And it feels like it's almost maybe, I don't know if it's purposeful. I don't know if they want to do that on purpose. They have never mentioned that that's like a thing that they value, is matchup spread being that polarizing, or if it's just an inherent problem with FAB as a whole. From like the base level of how the game is developed, it just naturally leans into having 0% to 20% matchups like other card games don't really have.
That is, I think the problem is actually like a core thing with FAB is specifically when you make powerful cards. You look at a meta like last meta, if you exclude Dromai, there's not a whole lot of powerful cards. Most decks are just good, consistent damage. You're trying to get small edges and get the best numbers. And in a meta like that, you don't have very many polarized matchups, right? Like Hatchetdory, KO, these being the best decks, it's like, okay, there's a bunch of close stuff. Like Victor, it's like close into everything. But then when you start making really powerful cards like Bonds of Agony or Manifestations of Miriagai, or literally every single card that is in Zen, It's like it becomes really problematic because when you're forced into archetypes, which we are in this game because of the hero system, you naturally will have like, well, if New exists as a hero and an archetype, and New's power cards are Bonds of Agony and Persuase, Prognosis, Justinic, whatever the power cards are, like she's always going to have those. And then if her kit, like the idea of a kit in Flesh and Blood, your equipment and all your cards, if your kit is just good into somebody else's kit, like Dash's kit, right? Trying to boost or play very specific item cards, like naturally New's kit is going to be really good into Dash's kit. Whereas in something like Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh, for example, where you have Yu-Gi-Oh a little bit less so, but like where you have less defined archetypes and there's more deck building with more generic cards, you have less of this because you have a lot more room to expand your own kit. So I'd be curious moving forward if Flesh and Blood can kind of change that. The easiest answer would be more powerful generics, but that also kind of takes away from what makes Flesh and Blood special, which is playing your own kit. But I don't think we're going to see this go away anytime soon, where a lot of heroes have really polarizing matchups, because we're also seeing it go into the direction where a lot of heroes have really powerful cards. And if these really powerful cards are unique, which you want them to be from a design standpoint, because otherwise the game's really boring, if you have uniquely powerful cards, they're just naturally going to match up really well sometimes because they'll be more punishing into other decks than others.
I would argue that this isn't an issue for the most part. Like, the game doesn't have rotation, so this is like a way of having kind of natural hero rotation. Like, if you look at the meta right now, it's completely different than last meta, right? Like, we were playing Warriors and Bruce, basically, and Guardians, and now, like, those are, like, the worst three here classes, besides KO. So I think it's fine the way it is. Like, I think it was more of an issue when it was an open meta, right? Like, things are undefined, and you have a bunch of decks with 20%ers, like, you don't know what to do. But, like, because it's so targeted, it's like, yeah, if you're 20% into Zen, don't play that deck. Like, that's just not a playable deck right now. And I think that's totally okay.
Yeah, I think it's a maybe not quite a feature, but it's an aspect of the game. It's not just always negative. Like you said, the rotating nature makes it like you have two different ways of like semi-rotation with LL and with polarized matchups.
Yeah.
The problem I think arises when most decks have polarized matchups and those decks are really good. That's when it can be a problem, when like the top 5 or 6 decks have a lot of polarized matchups within them. That's when it can be kind of problematic.
I mean, that's kind of how it felt last season, last meta. I mean, it's like Hatchet Dories definitely has polarized matchups that it like can't win. And you can look at like Teklovasa and Pistol Dash.
Sure.
Like, these weren't played, and that's why the deck was good.
Yeah.
Is because those decks weren't played. But the deck did have 0%, 10%, 20% matchups. Kano is another good one that's like pretty hard, right? As well. It's not that as low, but it depends. When they started stacking, it was probably close. It definitely got closer to like 20% or 0%. So we've always had this. It just matters where your 0%ers are, right?
Yeah.
If your 0%ers are the best 2 decks, well, then you probably aren't allowed to play your deck, right? Which is just different. Like, which is fine. We just have, since we have people like who like the characters or like the deck types a lot. We see something weird in this game, which we haven't seen in other competitive games, where we still spread out across all the heroes, even when it's a clearly defined meta, which then makes you like want to play heroes that might have that bad matchup, right? Like, so if New and Zen are like the top decks, you might play one deck that's good in the other one. You just sack the other one, like Enigma, and like just be happy with it because you enjoy playing the deck. And we see that a lot more in the competitive side on here. But because the Enigma's being played, that then makes like other matchups worse, that you're trying to target the two. So then you're like, what? Why are you still playing my 0%? You should be out of the meta. And then you're just like, you like show up to a Pro Tour and you're just like playing Viserai and against other decks. Why are you here? Like, what is going on?
I did that at Nationals. I paired against one of the like 3 Boltons in the room round 1, and he just like dumpsters me. I'm like, come on. This isn't supposed to happen.
It makes sense though, right? Like, this game really rewards being practiced and understanding your hero better than your opponent. So it's
until
people
it doesn't,
can't stick to their deck
because you have 0% matchups, and it doesn't matter. Your skill can't get you out of it.
I mean, it's 0% assuming they know what they're doing a lot of the time.
But they're like confident. They think they're like 80% into the other matchups, right? So they keep playing it, and so like, I just hope I don't see that.
I mean, we definitely see like mastery and experience be like a positive. Like I mean, we keep bringing up Hatchet Dory. I think we've said those words like 40 times this
I can't
episode.
believe we brought that deck to a Pro Tour.
But like you look back and
Seems
like
so bad
that,
now.
the Dromai matchup for our deck with the Dawnblade plan was probably maybe slightly favored if they knew what they were doing, right? Like if they knew how to play the matchup, maybe we were 55%.
It was exploitable.
Yeah, but like we were pretty bad, especially if they had like good lists, they knew what they were doing. I think we were like 90% into that deck over the weekend with like 20 games played. Like we just eradicated all the Dromais because we had practiced that matchup and they hadn't. Even though the matchup wasn't that good, it was just like it felt like free because nobody knew what they were doing. And that's like another thing where like moving forward in this meta, we could see something like that. Like maybe a deck's not that good into Zen, but Zen has to know what they're doing. And so it's fine.
Yeah. It's like Riptide's in that spot, I think.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Victor.
I mean, I'm excited for Riptide when he gets his armory kit that's coming out. His little armory starter deck. I think it's gonna be sweet.
Yeah, we might be Riptide gamers for Worlds.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm locked.
Yeah. People are like Azalea on the box. No. These are Riptide cards. And then you like read the cards. You're like, these are Riptide cards. Why is there an Azalea on the box? Which is funny because if things were going well for her, she could have like LL'd by then because she'd been on a tear for a while and starting to drop down a little bit. Okay. Anything else? Talk about the meta, if we're happy or not.
Oh, I'm thrilled. I love this meta.
I'm extremely unhappy. There's no
Zen goes
legalized
untouched.
heroes. I'm just waiting for skirmish. They think I'm testing for Pro Tour, but I'm actually just testing for skirmish season, trying to play an ice hero. I don't care which one.
Oh, I thought you meant your Zen practice in CC was getting you LL practice, like me. Also Blitz.
I don't know. I just wish the decks were a little bit more fun to play into, or felt a little bit more engaging. It's like you still win a decent amount. You're not like, if I'm playing Zen into new, I don't feel 0% by any means. I just don't feel like the game is up to me. I have an Art of War and you didn't control me. I win. Like you're just like I win. Like and then you're like every time I drew my Art of War, I like lost. I like you like ripped apart my hand. Oh no, I sad. And that's about it. And that's how it feels. It also can feel the other way. You're like when I'm playing new and then Enigma sits down and they have all the ward cards still, and I'm just like, oh, well, that was fun. Let's pack up this game and move on with our lives. Like it's just.
Well, even on the Zen side too, it's like if you're playing new and you miss disruption one turn, and Zen's like, oh, I have 50 damage. Look at that.
Yeah. Yeah, you're on the new side and you're like, oh, okay. I'm not gonna have any control this turn, but I'll get some damage in. And then you do your stuff. And then you're like, just don't have the anthems for this one turn, please. You haven't had an arsenal the whole game. Let's go. And then they drop. They're like, Art of War. Oh, another one, Art of War. And you're just like, well, I had one turn off. Like,
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
Just only deal
like,
20.
I don't know. If you can shift your mindset right, like it's cool to see these big, flashy plays, I guess.
Yeah, it's definitely
It's
probably
tough.
maybe it's a good coverage meta, right?
Oh, I think it is for sure. Like the games are so tense and like the swings are insane.
So either way, still having fun.
Yeah.
Just to go into the next section here, we're going to talk about some of our Discord questions. These are asked by premium members of our Discord. If you would like to join the Discord to ask questions of the podcast or find people to practice with, which there are a lot of good people in here to practice with, watch videos that we release, or ask questions of just the team outside the podcast, feel free to join in the link below. First question here comes from Millen, and he asks, do you think a reprint set like HP1 is a good idea for this game? If so, what sets should be included in the HP product?
No, it's not a good idea. That's my full answer, like start and finish. I think the best part about this game's market is that the cards that you invest in keep their value. And I think if you kind of eliminate that, it's a problem. I think History Pack 1 actually did it pretty well, where the cards were only slightly cheaper. And if they could do that again, well, it'd be okay. But I think you have to be really careful because like anytime somebody gets into this game, they're like, is it expensive? I'm like, yes, it is expensive to get into. The staples are worth quite a bit of money, and a lot of the cards you'll need for the decks are worth money. But they retain their value, and they will be able to be played for a long time across multiple formats. And I'm very suspicious of anything that makes the card prices go down, um, in order to get more new players to play. If it works and the cards can still retain their value, great. But that's not something we really see happen consistently or very often in card games. I think where the Flesh and Blood market is right now is pretty reasonable, especially because it's a game marketed towards adults and competitors, and adults and competitors tend to be more okay spending a little bit of money to get their cards, especially if it's a reasonable ROI. Like, it's not marketed towards like 13-year-old kids, and it's not marketed towards casual players right now, although it probably could afford to be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of the HP1 product myself, though I can appreciate what it was trying to do. I do think this game is not nearly as expensive as people keep saying it is. It's
Yes.
like they've never played any other card games before, where you have to always buy staples for the deck that you play in the next set. Always like play Yu-Gi-Oh and then tell me this game's expensive. Like, it's just not really how it works when you need like 3 secret rares in your deck or something and
Yeah, it's
have fun. Like,
yeah
and
cheaper for one tournament.
yeah, and then like, and the worst part is you'll like a new set will come out for that, and then there'll be like one busted card that you have to put in your deck, and then you go buy 3 copies of it and put it in your deck, and then the next set comes out and this card's bad now, and they reprinted it, so now it's worth $10 instead of the 150 of each set you had to buy, each card you had to buy.
Yeah,
Like,
there's a new Yu-Gi-Oh product that they've done 2 of now called Rarity Collection, where they reprint basically all the staples in the game in a bunch of different rarities and make them all super cheap. You can get copies of all the cards in the set for $6 or less, and I think like 7 or 8 of the cards in the set were at one point like $150, like within a year of this set dropping. So like, you legitimately could have spent like $1,500 on all your staples for Yu-Gi-Oh at one point, and then now they're actually worth nothing. Which obviously some of that was a slow decline, but some of it was like, this was $50 and then the set got announced and then they were like $20. Like the original copy is like $15 the next day. And there's like a lot of that in other games. Or in Magic, like you talked about, standard rotation does that to a bunch of cards. Any cards is playable in stand. Not that standard Magic exists anymore, but in theory, that happens. I think maybe also people are spoiled by Pokemon, because Pokemon is unreasonably cheap right now. It's like $50 for every deck. But
yeah,
even then, your cards are worth literally nothing a month later.
Yeah, I look at like how much Magic can cost and how much Yu-Gi-Oh can cost and other games that I played, could cost. And then like, and Yu-Gi-Oh's been doing this since I played, which is, since the second set came out. So, and they would like reprint your cards. They'd be into nothing. Like, that's what I was used to. Right. But I don't think this game is nearly as expensive as people think it is. They see they put in like their February deck in and they see like the numbers like $1,500 or $1,000. And I'm like, who's paying $1,000 for this deck? Like, this deck doesn't cost that. Half the cards in here are like free. Like, you just get them for free from anyone that you talk to. And then the other ones are just like some equipment pieces and just don't get them fancy. Like, if you look at like the equipment pieces that aren't cold foil, they're like $27 now. Like, they're like not even that. Like, get a Zen chess piece. It's like $27, $24 right now.
Also, like, whatever number you see on Fabry, you can just like multiply that by times 0.8 and like start from there. Because buying cards for like TCG low is just like not real. Like, you just buy anything for 80%.
Yeah, I think there are some cards right now that are like ridiculously expensive that shouldn't be. Like, I look at like Warmongers. Warmongers is like $70 right now.
Yep.
What?
Yeah, if you haven't looked at it recently, you should go look. It's just like
Same with,
that's like
Codex, right?
Yeah, that's like ridiculous. And then like, you get some of those cards that are just like fringe cards off to the side that have become expensive, but that's mainly because no one's opened the boxes that they come in a while. It's more just like a little bit of a supply issue. The boxes still exist. People just need to open the boxes so that the cards are available. There's just piles of these boxes sitting around. The boxes aren't even that expensive to buy. You're just like, it's just like, it happens to be that people need them for Pro Tour. And so there's like a pile of these type of cards that can make it look like it's really expensive, but for the most part, Like those are just like temporary prices going up. But I think as far as the card game goes, if you're just trying to build like your first deck or your other deck, this is relatively inexpensive as far as card games go.
Yeah. And it could be in your only deck, right? Like,
yeah, you could
switch
just
out
play
a
the same
card or
deck.
two every once in a while.
Yeah, you might not have, if you're not trying to be uber competitive, then none of that matters. But for the most part, the equipment used to be a problem. 100% used to be a problem, and it has really changed. In the past, every piece of equipment was like $150. There were times where we're building chain decks, and legitimately every piece of equipment that was in our chain deck was like $100 to $150 each.
Yeah. You guys remember $320 skull caps?
Oh,
I do.
Dude,
Yeah.
I opened and sold so many.
So like it used to be a problem, but I think for the last several sets, picking up the base rarity version of the new equipment, they're always like $20. And like that's like to me feels too low.
Yeah. The shift to like marbles and cold foils has been like such a big deal for like letting the boxes keep value without having to just like make the cards unreasonably expensive.
Yeah. And I think cards retaining their value, like Lucas was saying, is just such a huge deal. Like, especially generics, like E-Strike, Art of War, and Command and Conquer. They've had the same cost for 3 years now. Like, it goes up and down like $10, but it's the same cost. Like, I think I bought E-Strikes for like 30 and I bought CNCs for 60 at the time, and now they're worth 25 and 80. Like,
I bought CNCs before I could legally drive.
Yeah.
And now I'm 18 and they're the same price.
Yeah.
Like,
you can play with them forever, or you could sell them for what you bought them for whenever you bought them. Like, it's so nice.
It's like, it's just like buying your land in Magic. But it used to be the equipment was your land.
Yeah.
That's not really the case anymore. There's a couple of pieces of equipment that are like your land, but now it's more like CNC is your land. Like you buy those and then you put them in every deck that you play and you're just like good.
Yep.
Okay. Next question here was, what is your opinion on team events? Should we have more of them? And this is still from Millen.
yes.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, easily should be more than the 0 to 1 event we have right now.
God, I love team events. They're
That's
so
a
fun.
No-brainer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Calling's perfect for them, right? I would say.
Yeah. I have played one in Flesh and Blood, and it was a battle hardened, and it was the most fun I've ever had in a tournament ever playing Flesh and Blood. I have played one in Yu-Gi-Oh, and it was the most fun I've ever had playing Yu-Gi-Oh ever. Like,
apparently Worlds has a team event, right? Like a World Cup or something. I saw that posted.
I don't know. I want team events where I can actually play in them. Like sometimes I see these team events, but I'm just like, I'm in the major. Like, can we just do this somewhere else or some other time? I want to play in this like so badly.
Through Pro Tour, I want to play a 3v3 PTI event. Like,
no, I played in one team event. I believe it was a sealed event, and it was super fun.
It's also a format where you can play higher variance formats and feel a little better about it, even if the stakes are high. Like we've seen like team blitz callings or even like team sealed is like pretty reasonable, even if these formats are maybe like slightly too high variance typically. With like a little bit of play, you kind of get away with it more in a team environment. Not that I don't think like team constructed could like also see real play and be interesting. But like
every
having
team's
a spot
just 3 Mystic Heroes.
Yeah, right. But like having a team spot where you actually do have to like where you get to play unexplored formats and get to play with your friends and feel a little bit better about your losses. It's pretty sweet.
Yep, and it's just fun. Like,
yeah. People love them too. Like, like.
Oh my dude! If the majors on Sunday, if we could do ProQuest that were team events instead of like Blitz and LL on all of them, which I don't have a deck build for, I would be so happy.
I wouldn't fly home early. I would just play the team event. Like, you know how fun that would be?
Make them all team sealed or team draft somehow.
Yeah, that'd be sick.
Team draft is technically an official format, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a little unrealistic.
There's just no way you could do that for
that many people.
Like top 8, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But I that would be great if the battle hardened that's attached to the major was a team event. Like, that's like the best time to do it, because even if like
CC.
Even if you didn't go there with a team, it's like pretty easy to find 2 people over the course of the weekend.
The kind of awkward part is like you get into the spot where like, let's say you did go with your friends and there's like 3 of you and then one of you like day 2's the calling and then it's like, well,
make a new friend. What do you mean?
Yeah, no,
it's
I understand.
We're at the best community.
Part of the like really cool thing about team events is you can prepare for them with your team. Like that was the battle harden that I went to, like testing with Michael and Brody for it was like really sweet. And you kind of just like can't do that. Like making like it's still a battle hardened if you're trying to win, which theoretically like a gold foil on the line, like you should be like caring about the event, like finding some dude and being like, hey, we're playing like new in Enigma. We need somebody to play Zen and play it well. And he's just sitting there like, I was here for side events. Like it's kind of an awkward situation. Like I'm
I don't know.
sorry,
It's
my
better
friend
than not playing the events, which is what I do currently.
Agree.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean,
Battle Hardened Sunday is like,
yeah, it's not the only time I want team events, but it would be cool. It would be a decent time to do it, and I think you could fill a lot of seats with it because even if someone's there casually or they, bombed out, it's pretty easy to actually find a team.
Dude,
Sometimes
05 with teammates.
Sometimes when it's only a team event, I understand why they don't schedule it. It'd be cool. I want some more team event callings, but sometimes it's hard to like find 2 other people to fly with to the event to go play in when that's all there is. But if you're already there and like now there's just a team event after the like battle harden there, it's like a lot easier to, I think, actually have that. And I think if more people played in the team events, win or lose, they would have enough fun the next time that they put a calling out for the team event. It'd be a lot easier to have more people go. But yes, I would love more team events.
It's a pretty easy experiment to do as well.
Yeah.
Like on the Sunday thing.
Okay. Rinzo asks, what would you do to let your local LGS group grow?
I think I mentioned it before, but the biggest thing is just like having like a online presence, like someone in your community just saying like, hey, we're meeting up today. Who's coming? Just like having someone saying like dependably, they're going to be there every week. If you show up, that's just the biggest thing for us. We have like the same people post every week. Like, hey, I'll be at this store this week. Who's coming out?
I don't, in a perfect world, the store owners would do this because it's their business. I mean, but they don't.
But you need players, right? Like you want to make sure like if you show up, you're going to get games in.
Yeah. So all I'm saying is that like in the perfect world, the store owners do this and you don't really have to worry about it that much other than like just, show up. But that's not how the world works. And they have a lot of games. So they're just like, no one's going to care as much about your game as you do. So you're going to have to care about it. And because of that, I think the best way is, like you said, have someone that's super vocal, but also just go like every week, like make plans with people beforehand to play the next week. I know I asked a bunch when I started going to a locals. I was asked to go to like my locals because but before I started going, I've been going for a long time now. But when I first showed up, I just wanted to make sure everyone was okay with me being there. If people weren't having fun playing against me every week, then like I was cool with like taking a couple weeks off. Like if I won too many weeks in a row, I would actually make sure to ask like, if this bothers you, I could just like not show up for a couple of weeks and like you guys can play some weeks without me. Because I was very concerned about that. You know what happens now? I barely win my locals. Like they beat me up now. Like 2 of them like top of calling. Like they like did the opposite. Like everyone just got like really good at my locals, which is like super fun. And it's cool, to see people like show up and then they're just like, yeah, we get good practice here and we're gonna keep going. And they're topping winning callings, and they're not my record into Billy right now is just so negative at my locals, and that stuff is cool to see. So from my perspective, it was just like show up. If you're winning too much, make sure everyone who's there is still having fun with that. And then if they are, then just show up every week, even when you don't feel like it. Just keep showing up.
Yeah, I kind of have a unique perspective on this, I think, because I work for my local game store, and obviously I play Flesh and Blood. And I'm basically the ambassador between my store and the community. Like I organize most things for Flesh and Blood at my LGS, and communicating between the store owner and the players is kind of my job. And from my experience with my store and other stores that I've seen, the best ways to grow your community are, like you guys said, just show up, play, and then the other thing is to try and make not like an event out of it, but try to make sure that every armory is like fun and you're like hanging out. Like the most successful times that I've seen are when people are playing games before the armory, people play games after the armory. Sometimes people bring blitz. Sometimes people are playing like jank fun decks in the armory or just for fun afterwards. Sometimes people are showing up to draft early. I know some people at some of my stores like to party a little bit. And then that's like really fun. You stay out late, almost, like make a night out of it. But just like treat it like a hangout almost, which is kind of like a weird thing to say, but like make sure that the new players that are coming into the game are having fun, not just playing the game. Because most people that play Flesh and Blood enjoy Flesh and Blood. Like, you have to make sure that they understand that they're probably going to lose a lot at first. But like, if they understand that and they're okay with that and they want to get better, most people are okay just like losing a lot and playing the game, and they'll usually still have fun. But as long as you're making sure that they're like having a good time and having a good night, and then like the small stuff, like I need this Majestic for my deck. Okay, it's $3. Here's a playset. Like, I don't care. Right. Or, I need tips on this matchup. Can you help me? Oh, I'm on a team, but whatever. Like, you're playing once a week at locals. Yes, I'll tell you how I think you should approach this matchup. Things like that are just like kind of small, but like making sure that people are given access to the tools that they need to grow in the game and within the community is really important. And just like communicating with them and them being like, hey, we're really glad you came out tonight. It's really good to see you. Let's play some good games. Do you want to come with us next week? We're doing, this thing. We're going to this event, or, we're going to draft on Friday. Do you want to come up early and draft with us? Just things like that. Just making sure everybody feels included, because that's honestly, I think that's the best thing about Flesh and Blood is the community, and not just the general like Twitter community or whatever, but like the small communities everywhere I go are very welcoming and very inviting. And it is like a community based game. And so making sure that people enjoy the experience has been the most successful thing for me, historically speaking.
Good answer. Next from Cusco, it asks, if already not covered, what cards do you think they should or shouldn't be banned, and what cards are on your watch list in general? Ancestral Harmony.
Okay, let's see that first.
Stole.
Yeah, I think it's kind of needed right now. Because like the way the meta responded to Zen was by being a bunch of aggro decks who go as fast or potentially faster than Zen if he like fails to transcend, right? And I find in those matchups, Ancestral is actually like pretty key to like having a chance sometimes. So I think for the current meta, it's actually okay, but I think the card's really dumb. Like having that level of variance on a card is just kind of bananas. Like if you hit a red bonds with that card, it's worth like 12 or 10 minimum for one card that costs 0. Like that's just ridiculous.
And it flips cheap.
Also facilitates your hero power.
Yeah.
Like it's just, I mean,
it's a blue block 3.
If it didn't draw you a card, the card would be like very good.
Yeah.
The fact that it's just like, if you miss, it's like fine. Like it's fine for both sides. You were okay to still play your turn. Your opponent's not dead. If you hit like a Descendant or Bonds, the game's just over. It doesn't matter what turn it is. It doesn't matter what health it is.
It's not always fine, because sometimes you miss 2 times in a row against a dash player, and then, your tournament's over, right?
Well, yeah, but...
Sure. But yeah, you keep going.
Okay. But like, I mean, the games we're talking about, like, I only had a chance because of that card. Like, or it was like a way for me to have a chance. Like, I missed these other coin flips, and now it's like, okay, I have this coin flip. That's actually more than a coin flip, but of course it misses twice in a row. But yeah, I think the card's dumb. I think for Pro Tour it should stay. It's the meta like we're used to. I think it's actually kind of needed for how aggressive the meta is. But I think post Pro Tour, I would like to see that card go away at some point.
Yeah, I think it's probably no changes. I think if they do hit something, it's kind of like how they hit like. Oh, is it not what I think?
What cards would you like to see banned?
I have a list when we're ready for me, but you go. Lucas.
Oh, my ban list takes are kind of crazy, but I think Stride of Reprisal is probably the like most reasonable hit. I think it kind of echoes what they've done in the past to hit decks before like events happen, where they hit like Bullseye Bracers. We saw them hit, and then Autumn's Touch. Those are like the two, and then you even go further to like, I guess they kind of murdered like Icelander, Fi, and Oldhim. Some of them were just fine anyway, but like these like little hits that we've seen before, we've only seen like huge hits like, Belittle, Hypothermia, and Winter's Wail after decks have been like really good for a while. But like historically speaking, when we see like a new deck that's a little too powerful, it's like hit Stubby Hammers, right? It's like, it's a really good card. It's a pretty important part of the game plan, but it's like, just tones it down.
Yeah. Ancestral
Um,
Harmony is that.
Sure,
It's
it could
Yeah,
also be Harmony.
Yeah.
I don't like the
Um,
boots because it turns off a couple like interesting cards that just become like unplayable, like Territorial Domain and
Sure,
what Tooth and Claw I think is the other one.
maybe. I think I could see that. The other thing is it's like Harmony is like a hit to multiple decks, but they also we haven't see that be a problem in the past, right? Autumn's Touch and Bullseye Bracers were both hits to Starvo or to Oldhim, Briar, and Azalea, and I guess Riptide. um, but I think Stride of Reprisal or Harmony are the two most likely hits if they hit anything. I think
That's
people
still not
calling
the
for like
question,
a.
Lucas. What
What
would you like
do
to be
you
banned?
want to be banned?
I want Blood Rush Bellow to be banned so that they can
Yes.
print cool brute
There you go.
cards.
Yeah, that's fair.
But you can also just wait for Claw to LL because that's the same thing. Like, because brute design is just like unreasonably boring. So if they could print cards that are like cool for brute, that'd be sweet. I want Arclight Sentinel banned so that they can make more cool Prism cards. I don't want any cards banned out of new because I think that deck is really, really bad. And I think that deck has a bunch of really bad matchups and is not that good into the good matchups.
I'm
think
fine with that
Zen-
if we can nerf Zen. If we nerf Zen, I don't actually need new hits because I can just play real decks that like
I
new
want
can't
them.
beat.
I want them to ban Art of War because I don't like that card. I think that card also limits design. I really don't care about like current meta ever. Like I don't care what they hit now. I just want like new card design to be interesting. It's like all my ban wish list is just like I want them to be able to create more interesting cards. It's like Art of War.
Scabs.
Yeah, Scabs.
Scabs
ban
is still
as
my
well.
number one by far.
Yeah, I think Scabs ban or print the better boots. I'm actually fine with printing a better boots if it's like definitely better and you never play Scabs. But like that's just impossible to do. So
Dude, give. I'm fine with it. Just give them a thing that has like 3 armor and then 2 armor and then it blows up and then it breaks for a like an action point. Fine, print it and ban Scabs. Like,
oh, I have some really cool ideas actually for a boots for brute, but this is probably too into the weeds for our already hour-long podcast.
yeah, I'm just saying like anything. Just get rid of Scabs, please.
Yeah,
card is atrocious. Give me your list, Dan. List me up.
Yeah, I think it's actually just Scabs and Siren's Call. I think
actually wanna
Siren's
ban
Call is just a terrible card. Like, I like the tension that you have because it's like, oh, I don't know if they have an attack react that's going to buff their attack or strip a blue out of my hand, but it's like the counterplay is to block with my blues and have no turn by choice. Otherwise, I just yank it. Like, I don't know. I think the card feels terrible.
I think there's no counterplay. I agree. I don't.
Yeah, there's like actual no counterplay. It's like very frustrating that you just don't get to play the game.
We all said the same thing when we saw it. How were they allowed to print this card?
Yeah.
Like who? And they draw a card. Like it was just like, oh, it rips a card. It rips a blue out of their hand. We're like, this card's great. And then someone read the bottom text. They're like, and it draws a card. Why? Why does it have to draw a card on top of it? Like
it's so ridiculous.
like that.
And
that
Ancestral
part
Harmony too.
Is much. Yeah, I agree with all
That's
those.
my list.
Scabs, Siren's Call, Ancestral Harmony.
Yeah. All for Arclight going away too, but
you guys don't want to ban Art of War?
No.
literally never.
I hate Art of War so much. I hate that card. It feels like you can't print cards because that card
it draws
exists.
2 cards.
No, you just like can't make good go wide decks.
But
like
they-
if that
they
card
did.
exists. Yeah, and it's broken. like imagine if they like -1 Art of War plus 1 more good Zen card. That's like interesting.
See, you're banning for like stuff you want to happen later in the game.
Yeah.
We're talking about like ban these 3 cards on the 8th and see what happens.
No,
Okay, sure,
I'm
ban-
talking
Yes.
about the
All 3 of these.
band date after.
No.
the 8th.
Ban all of these on the
No,
8th.
don't take it.
Just make it crazy.
Not yet.
I think they should just ban like every good card that's not an Azalea card, so we just play a bunch of Azalea mirrors.
No.
Oh yeah, and Red and Ledger. I forgot that one.
Whoa! No!
Okay.
Dude,
Okay, man.
ban Warmongers. Fuck that shit. I want to play Bullseye.
Yeah, that card too. Sure, Codex of Frailty. That should be on the list. I knew there were more.
Stop, please.
No, I think it'd be
that's
hilarious if they just came out and they're just like Scabs, Siren's Call, Harmony, gone. Figure it
That'd be
out.
sweet. I don't know why they banned Siren's Call, but the other two, sure.
You know what's crazy? I was so down last meta for like a Sink Below and Favor Scene ban. Like those cards seem just so ridiculously good. and like
And
should
now
not
they're just
exist
like
in the
really.
game. They're like not even a thought at all right now.
Yeah.
Like
Dude,
maybe
you play
CNC
Blue
can
Sync
go at
below
some
now
point.
because it your transcend cards.
Yeah, you play
Yeah,
Blue Sync
true.
Below. We gotta ban it.
Can you imagine a list that's like ban Blue Sync below, but like leave Red Sync below? unbanned?
Okay, next question from Sam. If you could, how would you change Azalea without deleting her from the game? Yeah, without
Yeah.
deleting her from the game. I would delete her, but
I would too. Ban Red and Ledger, ban Codex of Frailty.
I'm just deleting her.
I think the cool way to change Azalea is actually to hit. There's like two ways to do it. Either you change the weapon, which is practically impossible because banning a weapon is lame, or you hit multiple pumps and you make her play differently. I actually like Red in the Ledger. You could also hit. I think it's just like I view Red in the Ledger. I think differently than some other people view it. I think the card's fine. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Obviously, it's really powerful, but like, it's like the only reason the hero like functions to a degree. It's like it is the hero into a lot of matchups. And then like Death Dealer, I think is like the big problem because like there's like two sorts of matchups with Azalea. There's like the matchups where Red in the Ledger is the best card, and the matchup where Death Dealer is the best card, and they're both kind of overtuned. Because in the matchups where Red in the Ledger is the best card, you don't really need a good rate as long as Red's for 11, like their turn's over, whatever. You get to the next turn, you deal more damage. And then in the matchups where Death Dealer is the best card, it's like you're up a card. Like you're the that like mythical like 5 intellect hero. That's you. Like when every turn is just like you draw an extra card, you get an extra look at that card with cross wrap. It's like it's pretty ridiculous. Like you're playing against like Dash, and it's like poor Dash is sitting there, and she's like, I can do like one action this turn. I have 4 tokens, and I'm like 10 life behind because you just hit me for 14 off of like 4 cards.
Yeah.
Oh, you also have an arsenal, and yeah, I have a frailty, and I'm gonna lose my arsenal. And it's just like there's too many things that Death Dealer enables. But if you have to play like Sand Scour, maybe, or like some other weapon, then it's like a little bit different, right? Then it's like you're focusing more on the dominate. You're doing a much more targeted thing. You're kind of playing like Lexi in like Tales Limited, where you're this like hit trigger based dominate deck. But the fact that she gets to do that and then also be like, okay, I have a Rain Razors, I have a Bolt and Shot, I have an Endless Arrow, I have some equipment, 25 damage, 3 on hits, I arsenal a card. It's like that's kind of messed up. In addition to also being able to end your turn a lot, I think it's the problem that it has both.
Yeah,
that's like it's Bravo and Lexi at the same time, and that's
agree
too much.
I have a couple of I think soft changes to make the deck a little bit more fun to play against, or at least better to play against. I think I would make Bolt and Shot Riptide only. Personally,
can you say that one more time?
I would make Bolt and Shot Riptide only.
Okay.
Because a lot of the issue with Azalea is her play pattern of go tall is fine if that's all she's doing is going tall, and her play pattern of going wide is fine if all she's doing is going wide. The issue is, like you were mentioning, when you're combining the two things together, it means that they can go tall and eat your whole turn, and then keep all their hand for no punishment, and then go wide to like bring your health down while still having on hits that are relevant and hurting you. I think removing Bolt and Shot, stopping them from going wide, would lower the power and kind of take away those double options, because you can almost never block the Bolt and Shot from what's coming afterwards. So it's just like free damage, and sometimes it's just like free damage with an on hit, because even if they have nothing following it, you just gave up cards out of your hand so you can't punch back with. It's just unblockable damage that has an on hit. So I think it should be removed.
There's kind of a different way to do that, which would be a really funny hit if they did, but you could just like suspend Bullseye Bracers until Azalea reaches Living Legend, which would be kind of hard to hit the same card twice. But like, I don't think you should like eliminate both like axis of play, because eliminating Bolt and Shot actually just means the deck's unplayable.
No, they still have like Falcon Wing, and they could play the 1-for-4 go again if they really want to do that, but they don't have a 0 cost now that reloads.
The deck is, I think, strictly speaking, unplayable actually without Bolt and Shot. I don't.
Well, then we fixed it, right?
Yep.
Maybe. Well, but I don't know.
I don't think you can make that argument when some of them are only running 3 Bolt and Shots. Like,
I think it's still like. I don't know, maybe. I think also the other thing is if they're tooling it more with the new cards, where it's more based on encounters and like that's kind of what you're trying to do, and that's like your strategy, then I could see something like that happening. Yeah. But in its current iteration, I think if you ban Bolt and Shot, Azalea is the worst hero in the game. Maybe
I think
maybe
that's
not quite, but it's pretty bad.
a
It's pretty
gross
bad.
over exaggeration. It definitely gets worse and a little easier to play into. But it kills some of the field bads. You could also, and I don't like this option, you could get rid of the blue search card, but I don't like that. I like
That
its,
card's just not good.
well, I like its
Yeah.
ability to toolbox. It's just like into certain matchups that feels pretty punishing, but I wouldn't really want to get rid of that. But I think trying to hammer them into one or two play styles or move them off Death Dealer, put a text on, like, all my changes require actual card changes because I don't like just banning the card, and so it's not something that's feasible. Like Death Dealer removes Go Again from the arrow that's put onto it would be like, but you draw a card, so you can play all these other cards if you want, and you can get them a different way. So like you can set up the big turn, but you can't load the Bolton shot with the Death Dealer, or it loses Go Again and can't gain it. These are like interesting, I think, ideas of how to play the deck, but none of these are like possible. The issue is it just does everything. And then
Yeah,
at the same time, if you take away any of these threats, you can just block the deck indefinitely and win the game. So like, it's just like, it has to be good or it's terrible.
yeah. That's I think it's like not that Azalea shouldn't be able to do all the things she does. It's just like the fact that she does two things much better than everybody else is the problem. Like I think it's fine if she goes a little bit wide, and like it's fine if she goes tall pretty well, but like being able to have actually more damage than almost every other deck can do in one turn, and also ending half the deck's turns with like one card is kind of a problem. I'm actually kind of on board for this whole like suspend bullseye bracers idea. Now that I'm like thinking about it more, like I'm kind of down
Why?
for that.
They're not even running bullseye.
No one
bracer
even plays
anymore.
that card.
Yeah, you keep talking about this bullseye bracer that no one runs.
Well, I don't think I don't think Azalea until like new or Zen is a problem. I think Azalea, because it's I don't know, Bullseye is like a pretty huge deal in the matchups where it's good, like because it does more than just like whatever value it actually does. Like they can just like never block a Bolton shot, and they can just like never like they just like always have to like think it could happen. They play around Codex a lot less often. Like it's just.
I'm not
kind
saying
of
it's
a
not
menace.
good. I'm just saying they're all playing half draw glove anymore, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, into the two best decks most of the time. Yeah. But
Anything
I
that
don't think
runs
Azalea is a
Warmongers,
problem
they basically
in
put
the
it
Zen and new meta. I think it's a problem in the everything else.
Well, I think that is enough for today. We have gone a little bit long, and we actually still have some practicing to do because there'll probably be no bans, and this is what we're getting. So goodbye, everybody. So take care. See you.
Bye, guys.
Yeah, we're getting rid of the envelope here,
7
but
envelope
we could do
in
here is go ahead
darkness.
and play the envelope.
All 3 pitches of envelope and darkness.